Previously on the True Blue Challenge. I bought a blue used MR2, obtained my first license, won the Sunday Cup, learned humility in the MR challenges, made a certain yellow car driving racer very angry, installed minor upgrades to my car, and entered the Japanese Compact Cup. With that having said, back to the world of Gran Turismo we go. As expected, the roster for this championship is easy. A bunch of Fitzies and a Fit with a Colt and a March in between. Right before the first turn, the white Fitz was overtaken. It didn't take long for the other Fitz to drop a position. Compared to the Fitz duo, the Colt managed to put up a fight, yet ultimately, it failed to hold me back. During my battle with the Orange March, a small miscalculation had gotten me to touch grass, a tiny setback against the speeding Fit. But of course, it will take more than a tiny slip for me and my car to claim the pole position before the first lap ends. On the second lap, the sheer difference of performance between my car and the rest becomes even more apparent, and I ended the first round in first, securing the early lead with 10 points. On the second race, I found a challenge in taking Colt's spot. After a couple of turns, the Colt has gone too wide, allowing an inviting gap for me to go through. I might or might not have caused the Fit to touch grass. I mean, it was such a light tap, and besides, he dived in on me, tried a faster approach in the next corner, and instead learned not to overestimate my mid-engine car's handling. Right before the first corner of the second lap, I've climbed to the third place. The Fitz tried to retake its spot. It failed to match my MR2 in power. Right around the start of the downhill section, the March found a healthy inspiration to touch grass. Little to the Orange Compact's knowledge, this is also healthy for my race as I gained P2 from this maneuver. Right on the final corner of the second lap, I smoothly took the lead from the white Fitz. From that point on, the race only served to show my dominance on the track. We go blue on the Tsukuba circuit for the third round. Since the Colt had opted to hug the corner, I decided to take a wider line in hopes of outspeeding it on the turning point. The Fit made a similar decision, and as for me, well, there's no need to change the winning formula now, is there? The gold Fitz, alright, you know what, in order to avoid confusion, I'm going to refer to these as Yarises, as technically it's also their name. Thanks. The gold Yaris took a left on the straight, leaving me with only one wheel on the asphalt. Fortunately, this was not enough to send my MR2 spinning, and I preserved in the battle for third. A corner came up and I decided to land a decisive attack right at its entrance. Immediately, a test of power arrived in the form of the track's longest straight line. Compared to these daily drivers, it was obvious which car would come out on top. After the March had been taken care of, that white Yaris' time on P1 is numbered. Right after the start of the new lap, the white Yaris had to give up its crown as it loses in yet another contest of power. None of them had enough power to challenge my lead, and so, this round ended with me on first, with more than double the points of the silver medal. The semi-finals was held deep in the forests of Deep Forest Raceway. Immediately after the race began, I pressed on the offense, but immediately was blocked by the Colt. Before the third turn, another chance to strike came in the form of a power struggle, and I were not about to waste it. After taking P5, I used the rather easy turns on the section of the track to weave through the Fit and chase down the rest of the group. An eager offense led to a flawed timing on tracking the corner, which almost introduced my only car to the guardrail. Fortunately, the golden Yaris failed to greatly capitalize from its mistake and found itself behind the taillights of my blue MR2. The other Yaris put up quite the fight. However, this defense immediately crumbled with the last corner of the first lap. 4 out of 5 races are down, and I'm on a hot, perfect streak, boasting a whopping 40 points. Even if the second and third places points were combined, it will still not be enough to overtake me. The final round was upon us. Upon launching off the grid, the red Fit had had enough and tried to block me off. Guess you could say he was throwing a fit. Yet all it had done was delaying the inevitable. I outpowered the Fit and moved in between the two Yarises. A tiny blunder allowed the white Yaris to make a rather short-lived comeback, as it lacked power to solidify its lead. The outcome of this tournament was in accordance to the plan. I've gained the most amount of money possible from the championship, more than enough to foot the upgrades needed to win the MR challenge. The game awarded me with a car, which color is white close to teal? Is that a teal step fan they're giving me? That's teal, right? Looks teal enough to me. Does it count as blue though? Hold on, is teal blue? Aha! It's a deep blue-green color, therefore it's technically blue, meaning I could actually keep this car. Well, it was almost worthless anyway. Next, I got racing grade exhaust and air filters, racing flywheels, and the second stage of non-aspirated engine tune-up. With haste, I headed back to the MR challenge. This is it. This is my comeback. This is my hour. My revenge. My redemption arc. Still above 100 points? But this time, my car houses much more horses under the hood. And if previous results are an indicator, the golden trophy will be mine.
What the
Later, buddy.
It's getting even harder!
Can't you wait fair and square, you shitty lousy
Believe me, I did not want to resort to that. But I don't see other ways to win given my condition. The track is small, the leading opponent could take off anytime soon with all that rubber band juice. In order to stop him, I must get to his level fast. I tried my best to tailgate the red NSX, hoping to prevent this dangerous rifle from popping off. My conscience absolutely refused to outright cut the chicane for the second time. Luckily, that was not necessary at all, as I'm practically glued to the Honda's back. The NSX managed to break free on the last corner of the second lap, but I did not let it go too far. On the third lap, I have finally replaced the race leader. Funny enough, once I'm in the lead, I increased the gap between me and that NSX the same way it did me on the previous lap. On the fourth lap, this situation had been reversed. I'm in the lead, while the red NSX did its best to stay glued to my back. Clearly, he did not do a very good job. On the fifth lap, I managed to keep my lead and finally etched a win in my book in the MR challenge. Much to this man's joy.
He didn't win, that's not supposed to count, you cheating ah!
Hey! Someone disqualify him! He's obviously cheating!
If you remember correctly, the beginner's course was not the only race which I've lost. I've also taken the L from the Autumn Ring race. In order to truly redeem myself, I must get a win in this race too. Look at it. The same Lotus Esprit and Honda NSX-R, armed with newfound confidence and an upgraded machine, I set out to right the wrong I've committed last time. This time, I let nothing be in my way. I overtook the brown MR2, sped fast to Olise, and immediately gave chase to the white NSX-R, which had scored a tremendous lead against me in my last attempt. I took advantage of the corners and took on the white NSX, opted for a wider line on the first lap's last corner to combat the green car, and maintained a healthy distance towards another major rival in this race, the red Lotus Esprit. The red Esprit's power matched my blue MR2, if not outright outclasses it. Therefore, in order to win, I must act smart and use the curves to my advantage. The Esprit wanted to hug the corners for himself. I decided to hug even harder by placing my wheels on the curves. I thought my battle with the red Esprit was over, but the performance switched back on me and regained its lead. On the next corner, I employed the same technique as the one I used to gain my first lead ever in the Sunday Cup and retook my crown. Apparently, the Esprit was not very happy with me as it bumped the right side of my bumper after I finished turning. This infantile action, of course, did not succeed in making me falter. The last corner of the lap was behind us, and with the final straight came the power struggle. As I heard the roar of my rival's Esprit, I was kept on my toes and moved to anticipate its strike. Thankfully, I managed to cross the checkered flag before it could make a comeback. I won, but that was a close battle. Surprisingly, the white NSX-R was not as defiant as before, landing in P4 instead of P2. The third event was held in the bustling city of New York. On the roundabout, I placed the ASL on last, and on the next corner, I noticed a small dispute between the Opel and the NSX. I took advantage of this by acting like a cue ball, stroked them both, and rose to third place. The Opel put up a fight, but my racing line was superior and solidified my lead against the speedster. While chasing down the Lotus Esprit, I made an awful mistake which punted my car to the wall on the left, pinballed to the concrete barrier on the right, and bounced right towards the unfortunate Esprit, who stopped my car at the cost of its racing line. I could only imagine its driver being a little cross with me, especially as I overtook him on the following corner. While I believe it was luck that allowed me to remain in the game, his blunder had increased the lead the Clio had. In order to rectify this mistake and bring home the gold, I must race better on the second half. I timed my brakes, made sure to take advantage of the curves, and employed a different strategy from the Clio in this corner, which allowed me to overtake via late braking. The slightly crooked straight line is coming. I learned from my mistake and slowed the car down before it spins out again. In the end, I scored a sub 2 minutes lap, and more importantly, finished first. The next event was held on the Fuji Speedway. My competitors were frantic at blocking one another. Ironically, this gave me the opportunity to go through 5 of them by simply driving straight. I engaged in a fierce duel with a silver MR2, all the way to the long straights. As I was engaged in a no-holds-barred power contest with a competing MR2, the NSX barged through us both, showing a complete dominant display of... My MR2 remained unchallenged on the long straights. On the hairpin turn, the NSX tried to take my position, but I preserved a better line for myself. I noticed that the NSX housed even more power compared to my MR2, and could take me over should it grew close enough. As I raced towards the checkered flag, I rarely looked back to anticipate the NSX's attack. Fortunately, I was saved by the finish line. I won by a strand of my hair. The final race of the MR Challenge was held on El Capitan, a technical winding circuit hosted in the States. I used my car's superior launch to immediately outrace the opponents. Used the inner side of the first corner to slip through the NSX. The Clio surprisingly put a better fight. Alas, it was all for vain as I eventually took its place. I gained first place early and used this opportunity to better understand the track. In my opinion, this track's variety of corners and altitude, as well as its fair share of straight lines, makes it good to understand the general characteristics of your car. Driving along the tree-decorated asphalt with the mountains filling in on the background is soothing for me, especially after I solidified my lead with a considerable gap from the guy in P2. He came in first, with a 3-second lead against the younger MR2. The event was done. I have redeemed myself. It is time for the new addition to my garage to be revealed. It's... I can't believe it! They've awarded me with an actual banger of a car! The Lotus Esprit, the car which proved to be a tough customer in the races. Finally something used. Wait, the color. I almost forget the entire gimmick of the run, but it's such a good car. Maybe just...
Remember our contract? Only blue cars.
But...
No buts. A contract is a contract.
Darn. This has to be the most painful car sell I've ever done since the inception of this run until this point. Goodbye, Esprit. Maybe in another run. Now that I've done all the races the MR2 could possibly take in the beginner's events, what now? Let's see. There's a drivetrain challenges, which means I'll need both a front-wheel drive and a rear-wheel drive car. The lightweight K-Cup, which requires a tiny car. And no, while my MR2 is considered a compact apparently, it does not register as a K-car. Fair enough. Then there's Spiders and Roadsters, which means I'll need a convertible. And finally, one pickup truck to race in the sports truck event. To reduce credit sinks, I must find cars that could compete in multiple of these challenges.
What did Strakes do to you?
He cheated! Cutting the cane in beginner scores like a motherfucker!
At least he didn't use your car like a cushion. Allowing such a brute into Gran Turismo is simply uncool. Gentlemen, shall we begin?